Welcome to the IFCA Journal Podcast. This is your platform where you can share and all learn from each other. I'm your host, PJ Hedrington. I would like to welcome my guest, kind of the leading man with culture that I know, John Torrey. He's a husband to Rachel, 3 wonderful kids. He was an intern at Nebraska, worked 3 Super Bowls, I believe, coached football, wrestling at Denison. Also now he's currently at Plainview, Nebraska. He was also Educator of the Week, nominated by KDSN. He also has a book, More Than a Game, Building Relationships with a Winning Culture. So again, coaches, I'm excited to bring to you Coach John Torrey. Welcome.
Thank you, Coach Hedrington. And to my Iowa coaching friends, I miss you guys. I appreciate you guys. I see you guys at clinics and talk to some of you regularly over the phone. And it's great. Like, Iowa is a great place to be from and a great place to give back to. So I really appreciate what the Iowa Football Coaches Association does. I've tried to write articles for the Journal to give back, and I'm excited now to just do a podcast and keep it maybe a little more informal, but also reach more people as well.
Well, this is new to me. I mean, I'm so used to taking articles and reading them, so this is a new platform for us this year, and it's been a learning experience. Okay, all right, here we go. We'll get right into it. All right, what is your first step in creating a positive culture?
Well, it starts with the relationships. I mean, that's no secret. You read any book out there, most of the coaches in Iowa are teachers, right? And it goes all the way back to the days of Vince Lombardi and Bill Walsh and the great innovators of the game. They've all been great teachers. They've all been able to build relationships. John Madden is the coach that I kind of emulate the most, right? And it's interesting because I wasn't around for Coach Madden's coaching career. I know him as a broadcaster. I've played the games, right, the video games and all those things, but I've really studied John Madden. And he was able to reach people that no one else was able to reach. I'm not sure anyone in the history of football has had more fun than John Madden's Raiders in the 70s, right? Whether it's appropriate or not, I mean, there's a lot of stories out there. But John Madden was able to take these guys that were ragtag renegades from all different backgrounds and put them together and create a dynasty, right? The Oakland Raiders of the 1970s winning over 100 games and in 10 years as a head coach, winning a Super Bowl. And, fun fact about John Madden, he, as a coach, had a winning record against every other coach that he coached against in the Hall of Fame. And so you think about just winning 1 Super Bowl in 10 years, and while that's an accomplishment, all the battles they had with the Steelers, and I think about the Immaculate Reception, and I think about the Dolphins, and a couple times they lost in the playoffs to the Dolphins, one of them being in 72, with the only team to ever be perfect in NFL history. His hero was Vince Lombardi, and to have winning records against all these guys, I think that really says a lot of who you are as a coach and what your character is and what you can do to teach. But for me, when it comes down to building a team, because at the end of the year, right, in our profession, the trophy that's awarded is given to the best team, not the best quarterback, not the best player, not the fastest kid, not the biggest kid. It's given to the best team. So for any coach out there, building a team is harder and harder and harder all the time. But I always think about John Madden, and of course there's other coaches too, and my coaches have impacted me as well. But if you can't relate to players, if you can't get them to buy into your system, your process, if you can't care about them as an individual and a person, does anything else really matter?
Good. Okay, so what advice if I'm starting out a first-year head coach, fresh out of college, what advice would you give me into building a culture?
You know what? It's a great conversation. I just had it yesterday with a former player. One of my former players has been, he's going to graduate from college. He's been officiating. He played in college for a little bit. He's kind of transferred. He was injured for a while. Like, college ball is tough, and anyone who's been there kind of understands that path. But now he's going to graduate, and he's from a really tough socioeconomic background, so he doesn't have a lot of resources, no one in his family to guide him. But he's been officiating games, which I think is phenomenal, because that's the best way to share the game and a huge critical area of need right now. And then now he wants to go be a head coach, and he's going to do his student teaching after, he's doing his student teaching, and the school that he's at right now has approached him about maybe coaching a junior high team to get started. And so he just reached out to me, like, what advice would I give him? Same question he just asked me. And we talked yesterday for a couple hours on the phone, and it really comes down to this, in my opinion. Organization is the key to an organization. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Organization is the key to an organization. In other words, your culture is great. Your scheme is great. I don't care if you run 4 verts. I don't care if you run a 5-3 defense. I don't care if you have 2 high safeties. I don't care if you have the most dynamic special teams out there. If you, don't know how to organize what you're doing, does it really matter? And all the coaches that get fired in our profession, it's usually because of a lack of organization, right? They don't. Do you have a practice plan? Do you have a bus list? Do you have a plan for a banquet at the end of the year? Are you able to communicate with your team? Do you have a system for communicating? Coach Hendricken, you and I earlier had a little bit of a schedule conflict right before hopping on this call, and some of it was unforeseen, but we talked about the lack of communication in today's society. We have more ways to communicate now than we ever have, and yet people are communicating less. So I think all those things matter. So before you think about your scheme, if you were going to be a head coach, you need to have your practice plans figured out, your bus list figured out. You need to have an attack for, how are you going to pick starters, letter winners, those kind of things. Because, and some of it's going to be school policy, right? Like this player of mine, he was asking me about what do you do with kids who don't have good grades? Well, the school will have a policy for that. But as a coach, you're going to face a lot of different scenarios, and what's your plan for that? So the more organized you are, the more you can head off those issues. And I think as long as you have a reasonable plan, most people are good with that. What gets you in trouble is when people don't have a plan, right? And they're just kind of flying by the seat of their pants. And young coaches are terrible at this, in my opinion. I was there. I was the same way. I left a kid at a wrestling meet once, right? He went back for his lunchbox. I did the head count in the van. He went back into the gym to get his lunchbox. I left him, and we got back to Denison, and everyone's like, hey, where's Patrick? And it's like, he was in the van, but now he's not. No, and he didn't tell anyone, and I didn't have a bus list, so that makes me look really bad. Now, luckily, his mom was at the wrestling meet, and he was able to catch a ride home with her, but I had to eat crow a little bit and be like, yeah, I'm sorry, that's my fault. I didn't do what I was supposed to do. Anyone who aspires to be a head coach, the X's and O's are great. The scheme is great. Whatever you want to do, winning games, great. Do you have a plan for all the other stuff that you have to organize?
Right, and wouldn't you agree that even I'm 40 plus years and I'm 22 years into the profession? Would you agree that it's even as important as we get older as well? It's the same thing basically.
I think it's maybe more important because there's no excuse now. When I was playing, you had your coach at the clipboard. And your parents just trusted you that you were going to get to where you were supposed to go. Like they trusted the coach. They were going to do with it. Like now, I was tracking my daughters who went with my mom for Christmas shopping on Life 360 from another state away, right? So it's just anymore, it makes it inexcusable. 30 years ago, we had an excuse. I'm sorry, I tried to get a hold of you, but your phone, you didn't have an answering machine, no one's picking up. Like now there's no excuse.
No, there's no excuse now, especially now with in the day and era we live with technology, and everybody's got a X account or they got a Facebook account or they've got your cell phone, and so that's a good point you bring up there too. So now the next question is, I'm that young coach or I'm that middle of the road kind of coach. How do I establish that culture from not only my program but into my community?
It's a great question. Your community has to support you. If you don't have community support, it's really hard to win. It's really hard to accomplish the things that you need to do. I'll say this too, that as a teacher, I don't know why we go to high school still, except for activities. Activities are the reasons that we go to school. If you just want to go, think about how boring your day would be if you showed up at the 8 o'clock bell and went home at 3:30 and you had lunch with your friends and maybe you played a game of PE and then you went home or you went to a job. That's not a very fun day. For me, activities are the key. And I don't care if it's band, choir, speech, debate, football, wrestling. Like that's where it starts. And so, I always think that your athletic program should be the front porch to your school. So whatever you're doing, whatever you're putting out there, people are excited. They want to come to the gym. They want to come to the stadium. They want to see kids participate in activities, right? They want to come to the band concert. I had 2 holiday concerts last week for my kids, right? And I was excited to go to those concerts because it's just different, and that's what brings people to our school. If we lose some of those things, there's no longer a reason for people to come to the school. Secondly,
Right.
we're in a really interesting situation in Plainview where we are co-oping activities now with a school that's 9 miles away. This school, their enrollment is declining. Ours isn't, but we're trying to be proactive, and so the co-op makes sense. They've been a partner with a couple other area schools. I don't know all the ins and outs of why that hasn't been such a success, but I do know that this year, coaching football in junior high, it was up to me to make sure that our co-op was a success. That meant that I would get up early. I would drive the 10 miles to the other school to pick up those kids that were playing ball. I had to communicate with 2 schools. I had to work with 2 different schedules. I had to work with 2 different groups of admin, 2 different ADs, and I had to pull everybody together. And we had limited time to prepare for this. It was approved in the summer, so we didn't have time to lift together or build a big team like, you would maybe hope. But at the end, I knew football had to be the driver of this because old ladies don't sit at the hair salon and talk about volleyball and cross country, right? They might mention it, but football is just different. And anyone who's been around this sport, who's still connected with this sport, understands the old men get together and they still care about what the high school team is doing on Friday night and what they're doing on Monday and, what the college team in the area is doing and watching NFL all day Sunday. It still matters. So football is just different. So I knew going into this co-op this year that it had to be a success. There was no way that it could fail. If I let it fail, then that was going to be the end of the partnership before it even got off the ground. Luckily, I didn't. We're going to do the high school co-op next year, and it's because of some of the success that we had in football this year, but it threw my whole schedule off. They get out for PD on Wednesdays. We get out on Fridays, right? How are we going to make that work? You're essentially losing 2 days of practice with that because Wednesday, they're out 2 hours before us. I'm not going to make a kid stay around and go to practice after that. They have their God night, right? Their church night is Wednesday. I'm not going to make a kid choose between practice and church, especially when you're 13, 14 years old and you're starting to get confirmed and you're really making a choice. I'm not going to make someone choose that. And then on Friday, we get out for professional development. So it's that cancels practice after school. And junior high kids are totally dependent on their parents for rides. So it's different with high school where they can get in a car and they can come back to school and they've got a little more freedom. But junior high kids are totally dependent on others. So that meant that we went no practice on Wednesday and we went Friday at 7 in the morning and we treated it like a walkthrough because our junior high schedule was played on Mondays. So you're losing 2 days a week of practice, but it's the right thing to do. It's best for kids. And I'm a big believer in rest anyway. So we want to hit every day. We want to tackle every day, all the fundamentals every single day. But at the same time, it's I want kids to be fresh and I want them to have a good experience. And so again, it goes back to if you start practice on time and you end practice on time, no one's going to complain. It's when you don't start on time and you don't end on time, that's where you start to have problems. Also, in any kind of co-op situation, so for other small schools that might be listening, it's the adults that have to make it work. It's not the kids. It ain't a kid problem. The kids, they're out for the sport because they love the sport or they love their friends or whatever reason, or they love the coach. There's a lot of reasons kids do activities. But the reason co-ops fail, the reason community support fails is an adult problem.
Correct. Well, it goes back to what you said earlier. It's a plan, right? You have to have a plan.
Yes. And the more people you have involved, the more detailed your plan has to become. When I'm running wrestling practice, and we got boys and girls going right now, and I've got to go 10 miles on the road to pick up kids, and I got practice at 6 a.m. because we only have one wrestling room, right? Another one that's a makeshift one, but that's what our boys and girls use after school. So I got to go at 6 a.m. with my junior high kids, which isn't ideal, but I got to go pick up these other kids that are wrestling for me too. That means I got to get up at 5. I got to go to the bus barn, get the bus by 5:15, drive 15 minutes, pick up kids, get back 15 minutes, and make it to my 6 a.m. It just requires more. So the bigger you go, right, the longer you go in the postseason, the higher the expectations are for your program, the more detailed you have to be, and it has to start with adults.
I like that. I agree with you on that topic there. All right, next one, and this is something I just kind of want to know too, is you've established your culture, you've got that culture going. How do you maintain it?
Well, it comes down to values, in my opinion. The maintenance is hard because everybody has to, I look at what Kurt Cignetti's doing at Indiana, okay? And last year had a big senior class. All those guys have followed him. Again, relationships. He's known those kids for a long time, right? And then he graduates all of them because they're seniors. And everyone's like, well, Indiana, good job making the playoffs. Now what? Now you're going to be back to Indiana. And it's not. But maintenance is the hardest part. It has to be a daily fight. You know, Randy Jackson in Texas, he and I talk a lot, and we talk about a daily fist fight. You have to fight for your culture. And if it matters, you're going to fight. If it doesn't matter, then you're going to let little things go and it's going to fall apart on you. But for me, what keeps me grounded is the values. So the values that you have for your team, right? These become your expectations. But for me, I think everyone should have, I don't know, at least one or two values and no more than 5 or 6. I like to theme my values for the day of the week. And for football and wrestling, because they're physical, violent sports, keep the same values. So they're very consistent for kids. But my 3 values, Coach Hedrington, are tough, smart, fun. We got to have tough kids. Nice. Football is a tough sport. Wrestling is a tough sport. Okay? And you got to be tough mentally and physically. Hopefully you're tough spiritually too, because you're going to confront some things that maybe you don't want to deal with as you get older and as your friends start to change, and you're just going to be put in some weird situations. So hopefully you're tough spiritually too. That's not something that people talk about a lot of the time. Smart. I don't know of any coach that's ever won with dumb players. Okay? And it's not just about being smart on the field. You got to be smart off the field too. It's in the classroom. It's in the locker room. It's, you know, when do you tell on one of your teammates, and when do you maybe just confront them and say, hey, knock it off? Or maybe you just ignore them for what they're doing temporarily. So we need smart players. I don't want robots. Like, I know coaches out there will diagram a play, and they'll be like, well, I need the go route to be right here, and you got to line up at the bottom of the numbers, and you got to get outside release, and you got, you know, and then the number 2, you're running the stick route. So you're going to run 7 yards, you're going to turn, you're going to stop, and you're going to look for that window. Like, I don't want robots. I want players who are smart, who understand where they fit into the scheme. The more they understand of the scheme, the better off that is for me. But at least know what their job is. And, you know, that's how you win. Like, there's going to be times in a game where things break down, and smart players will find a way to make a play. Bill Belichick puts this better than anyone else that I've read or that I've studied. He basically said in New England, the more you can do, the more you can do. So I always encourage my players to know at least 2 positions on offense and on defense. On special teams, I expect all my players to do all the positions because I don't know what we're going to need, and I don't know who's going to do it best. And special teams is the best way to find your way onto the field, in my opinion, especially if you're a young player.
Right. True. All right.
Yeah, fun. If kids don't have fun, they're not going to stick out for it, right? They're not going to stick around. And coaches, I know winning is fun for us, but what if you don't win? I can't guarantee winning. Other people listening to this podcast, even if you've had a boatload of state championships, you know, I think about that school. It's 26 miles south of Denison, and all the championships they've won down there in Cyclone Country at Harlan. You can't guarantee that anymore. So how are you going to have fun? How are you going to have fun if you don't win? And that's where creativity as a coach has to really come into things, and the relationships. And I just took my wrestling team to a Nebraska duel on Friday night. It was fun. Most of them have never seen college wrestling. Most of them have never spent any time on the University of Nebraska campus. To these small-town kids, you know, 3 hours from Lincoln, that's fun for them. And every single person went. We didn't have one person say, no, I got a family Christmas, or, Coach, we're going out of town this weekend. Every one of them went. It was fun. It was extra work for me, and it required more organization, but we had fun, and I hope those kids remember it for a long, long time.
Good. All right. To piggyback off of what you said earlier, and I'm gonna skip my third question and go to my fourth one right away, okay? Because you hit it on the head. If I'm losing, okay, I'm having the 1-8, 1-9 season. How do I create a positive culture?
Well, you got to find a way to measure success. That's what it comes down to. I mean, I remember one year my team was 0-9. You talk about, I think teams that have those losing programs, right? Teams that are perennially in tough spots, that perennially have a losing record. I feel for them because those coaches are working their tails off, and it's not showing up. And nothing's worse than that, right? When you feel good about what you're doing and you're working your tail off and you just aren't getting any of the results that you think you should see or think you deserve. So for me, the first thing is surrender the outcome. it's not about winning. Like, forget about, Bill Walsh, being a 49er and studying the Bill Walsh way. Like, the scoreboard takes care of itself. So it is a direct reflection of the work that you put into it, the organization that you give, your process, however you want to define it, your culture, right? There's a lot of different ways we could talk about it, but ignore the scoreboard. You have to surrender the outcome. Every Friday when I go into a game, I don't worry about what the final score is going to be. I want my kids to play hard. I want them to be able to pass the mirror test, which means, Saturday morning when they get up and they're sore. And my quarterback, I had a really special quarterback in Denison, and he used to say, be sore Saturday. That's what he used to tell his teammates when they were unsure of what the outcome was going to be. Who cares? Fight your tail off and be sore Saturday. And I loved it because regardless of what the result is, if you can look yourself in the mirror at the end of the day or the beginning of the next day and you're tired and you're sore and you feel however you feel about the outcome of the game, that's a win, right? We're dealing with high school players. 95% of them aren't going to go on to play any level higher than high school. And that's if you can keep your kids out for 3 or 4 years anymore. That's really hard to do. But I think that you have to find your own success. It can't be what the scoreboard says. So I'm a big storyteller. I look for stories of guys that maybe don't get a lot of love throughout the season. And I coach the O-line. There is no stat that's positive for O-linemen. Not one single positive stat, right? You get holding call, oh, there it is. Number 67 again, holding, right? Or someone jumps offside. There it is. Center missnapped the ball, or so when people notice my position, it's always because of a negative connotation, right? No one sees the downfield block that happens that springs the running back. They watch the running back go down the sideline. So I think that's what it comes down to. How do you spotlight people, even if the team isn't having success, but how do you help other people see and celebrate their success?
Okay, good. Yeah, I think you're, in my opinion, I think you're spot on. All right, next one here. Go. How do you get your coaches to buy in to your culture?
That's really tough, and adults are really tough. Anyone who's been in this business for a long time will tell you that. Right? Kids are easy. If I bribe a kid, a couple years ago I ran a play called Cheeseburger. I lined, just like the fridge in 85, I lined my 285-pound kid up in the backfield, and inside the 5, I handed him the ball. And the deal was, if we score running Cheeseburger, that's what we called it, Bill Walsh, it was the Angus package. Mike Ditka took it and called it something else, but basically gave the ball to the fridge, right? So I called my 285-pound lineman the mini fridge, and I said, if we score running this play in a game, I'll buy everyone cheeseburgers. And so we did. And so kids are really, really easy to motivate. Adults are a lot harder to motivate. It's a lot harder to, build a good camaraderie. And I've had limited success with it. Some coaching staffs I fit in. Some coaching staffs, I'm the outlier. And that's a really tough spot to be, especially if you're, not the head coach, and especially if you're a young coach. It's really hard to be the outlier. At the same time, I like to win, right? And we all do. But I think the best alignment you can have is, are you doing what's best for kids? If you can believe that everyone on the coaching staff, if you get alignment, right? So I always tell my teams, be you, but align with us. So in other words, if you want to wear earrings and necklace and baggy pants or, a certain shirt in school or around school or in the community, I don't care. I teach in rural Nebraska. If you want to wear Wranglers and boots, nothing wrong with that. You be you. You drive your truck with the big old whip. I'm going to walk to school. I'm going to get in my, Hyundai Elantra, and I'm going to drive, and I'm going to fly to some city when I go on vacation because that's what I like to do. But I always tell kids, be you, but align with us. And I think when we talk about a coaching staff, you have to have alignment. Everybody has to do whatever their role is. And a lot of people don't want to be role players in today's society. They want to be the guy. They want to make the call on 4th and 2 on the goal line that wins them the game. And that's just not how coaching is. Again, the most underserved spot is your junior high coach. How aligned is your junior high coach to what the high school program is doing? If they're aligned, then those kids are going to be set up very well in the future. If they're not, and your junior high coach is doing something totally different, maybe that's okay, but I think that hurts you long term. So it's not just your high school program, it's also your feeder programs from junior high and youth. But Head coaches out there, you've really got to work to build alignment. Are all of your coaches pulling in the same direction? And I think about a great story when Pete Carroll first got to USC, when he left the Patriots and he went to USC before he started, paying players before he should, but winning national titles and that kind of thing. USC was a divided team. They were kind of a bad program, hadn't had a lot of success, had a lot of talent, but no one could figure it out. And he took them to the Coliseum one night, and he put a big rope out at the 50-yard line, and he had the offense versus the defense in a team tug-of-war. And, it was a stalemate. No one really won. No one was embarrassed. And then he put all the players on one side of the 50, and they all pulled against no one on the other side. And that rope went 30 yards, right? They easily able to get that to where it needed to be. And I think it's a really good lesson. When everyone's pulling in the same direction, it doesn't even feel like work. Things happen that are good. When you're fighting against yourself, that's a really tough spot to be. And you're almost going to make no progress. It's going to end in a stalemate every time, whether you're right or wrong or indifferent. But for me, it's about alignment. Is everyone pulling in the same direction? And then are we doing what's best for kids? If you can say yes to those two things, then I don't know what else you want from an admin standpoint. The wins will come or they won't, but at least we got to start with those two things.
Okay. All right. What are some of your favorite books you're reading right now?
I'm reading all the time. I'm actually reading a book on Tupac right now, which is not
Man,
football based, but I love Tupac. And my favorite author is actually who wrote this book. It's called Only God Can Judge Me, and it's by Jeff Pearlman. And Jeff Pearlman's my favorite author. I've read every book that he's put out. I've been on some Zoom calls with him, and just a great guy. But he's got a biography on Bo Jackson. He's got a biography on the 86 Mets. The HBO series Winning Time, that's based off of his Showtime series with the LA Lakers in the 80s, Magic and Bird and that kind of thing. But otherwise, if you have not read Bill Belichick's book, The Art of Winning, that's my favorite book of 2025. I read a lot, but if you haven't read that, I pre-ordered that, 6 months before it came out. And then when it came out, I bought everyone on our coaching staff a copy. And inside I wrote, let's win a state championship. It's called The Art of Winning by Bill Belichick.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
If you haven't read that, make that on your short list. I've also read, there's another great book called American Kings, which is a biography of the quarterback position. And high school coaches, we all know that our best player plays quarterback 85-90% of the time. I think about Brandon Sheriff in Denison and, being the number 5 draft pick overall after winning the Outland at Iowa before he played for the Redskins, and he was a quarterback in Denison, right? Your best player has to touch the ball all the time. So American Kings is a great biography that chronicles the quarterback position. My game day notes, I write them to the O-line, and then I write them to our quarterbacks as well because they're the leader, and I want them to really have ownership. But a lot of my game day note materials came out of American Kings this year. So Seth Wickersham did a great job with that book too. But I would say those two books, for culture, The Art of Winning and Belichick, and then for the quarterback position, American Kings by Seth Wickersham.
Okay. All right. I'm taking notes as we talk, so I'm gonna write that down. And it's funny because you didn't plug your book in there, which is crazy to me because I would have done that.
My book, Coach Hedrington.
I would have done it.
First of all, kids ask me all the time, junior high kids, they're like, Mr. Torrey, can you help me with the parts of speech? And it's like, no. I wrote a book. I couldn't tell you what a preposition is. I just couldn't do it. The other thing is that my book is the 2017 version of me. So I am a way different coach. I would hope a way better coach in 2025 than I was in 2017. So it's still out there. It's on Amazon, right? People are still reading it. They give me feedback. It's great. But that is an old version of me. So I'm just trying to evolve all the time.
Okay. Well, it's always good. It's always good. All right. Since you're a culture guy, okay, and it's the holiday season, and most of our coaches listening will love this. How do you have create a wonderful culture in a program, and then how do you create a wonderful culture at home?
It's really hard to do. I don't have an answer for
balance,
that.
Right?
Virtually impossible. Because on the days that I feel really good about my team at home, I don't feel so good about, and vice versa.
Right.
I don't know. Everyone who's been married will tell you it's their spouse. And I couldn't do what I do without my spouse. I mean, I really couldn't. Like MVP at home and all those other things. But like, there's a lot of days where I walk out the door at 7:15 and I'm going to teach and I'm going to go coach and I'm going to get on a bus and I'm going to go places. And my spouse has to be the one to pick up all the slack for our kids. At the same time,
Yep.
I have to apologize to my kids a lot because, you know, I'm not there because I'm working with other kids, maybe kids that don't have parents or maybe kids that don't have the resources that we do. And at the end of the day, I just have to trust that I'm trying to do the best I can for a lot of different people, and my kids are well taken care of, well provided for. I don't think they'll understand that now, but in 15 to 20 years, I would hope that they'd be like, you know, I mean, Dad really did a lot for us, and he did a lot for other people too.
Correct. Yeah. It's just it's important, you know, as a young coach, we get into the rut of trying to prove ourselves as a coach or build a program really fast and be a winner, that we forget the ultimate culture, which is at home.
Oh my word! And you know what? Home is really, really difficult, and I didn't realize this until I'm in my 19th year of teaching here, teaching and coaching, and I didn't realize how difficult it was. I teach junior high, and that is an underserved job. You've heard me talk about it a couple different times. I coach junior high kids because that's who I relate to. I'm really good at that. And then when I have a teenager in my house too, that is really tough. It's really tough to work with teenagers all day and then go home to a teenager. At least give me some kind of rest. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's the days are long, but the years are short. I read a book a few years ago, probably 15 to 18 years ago. It's by Gretchen Rubin, and her book was called The Happiness Project. And it's like, how do you maintain happiness? You know, how do you maintain when your culture is really tough and it's a daily fist fight? How do you bring joy into your life? And you just have to remember the days are long. And there's a lot of days. I always say the greatest gift to God is that I go to bed tired. I tell that to my kids all the time. If you can go to bed and you're tired and you don't know if you can get through another 30 minutes of whatever you're doing or another hour of whatever you're doing, that's the greatest gift that you have to God, because you're using all your time, all your talents, all your resources, and hopefully then you'll be rejuvenated when you wake up. But just remember that the days are long, but the years are short.
True. That's very, very, very true. All right, we're wrapping up here in a minute. So, what's any advice to give a coach about his culture? Any advice? Any last pieces?
Well, it comes down to when you know better, you do better. And so for any coach who wants to, you get out of it what you put into it. This is something else that my kids hear me say. Every team across the state on a given weekday, on a given Tuesday, is going to have a 2-hour practice, right? And we just know in our sport, Tuesdays and Wednesdays are your work days. And then Thursday you taper off because it's pregame, and then Friday we're kicking off. And then Monday you got your JV game, and, you know, you're watching film and doing all those things. So the process is pretty good, pretty standard across the board. So it really comes down to, what are you doing with that 2 hours? You know, you have creative freedom, and when you know better, you do better. So if you constantly are you're going to get out of it what you put into it. If you harp on your kids and you run them into the ground and you make their life not real fun, and your players dread it.
John, I would like to thank you for taking the time today to join us. I appreciated all of the information that you shared. Thank you so much for all that you do for our students, whether they're in Nebraska, Iowa, and for our coaches. So that will wrap up our wonderful show for today. Thank you again, and thank you, coaches, for listening. That wraps up another episode of the IFCA podcast. As I always say, keep grinding.